Hey guys, this is Miss Checka, and I am nerding out right now because I am at the Special Collections Library at Dartmouth College, which is pretty much the most magical place in the universe. And I have in front of me a first edition book of David Copperfield, which is not only one of the most wonderful books ever written, but it's one of the most wonderful books ever written by my very, very favorite writer, Charles Dickens. I have a couple of things to tell you about this. So number one, Charles Dickens is most famous, probably you recognize him, for writing A Christmas Carol. So if you've ever seen like Ebenezer Scrooge and Bah Humbug, that's Charles Dickens. But this is not A Christmas Carol, which is teeny tiny. This entire stack right here, this is David Copperfield. And there's a couple of things that are really, really special about this. Number one, usually when you're talking about a first edition book, it looks like a regular book that you would see in a bookstore or in a library, but just older. You know, bound in leather and maybe made out of fancier materials depending on what it's from. And this is the opposite of that. Even though this that I'm holding here is pretty much priceless, it's made out of really, really cheap materials, and it's not even one book. It's this stack of kind of pamphlets like this. And that is because this book was written in serial form, not serial like cereal, S-E-R-I-A-L, serial. And a serial is when something is published in pieces instead of all in one time. So think about a TV show that you watch several episodes of over seasons, as opposed to like a movie that you would go see and you'd see the entire story in one piece. So when Charles Dickens wrote, even though today we buy his books in like big giant editions like this, when they were originally published, you would buy the first part, it would come out, all of your friends would buy it at the same time, and then you'd have to wait another month, and then the next one would come out. So this is a very, very different reading experience than we think about today. So these days, usually when we think about reading a book, this is an activity that's really private. You do it by yourself. And it's not that often that other people are reading the same book that you are at the same time, unless you're reading it for a class. But back then, these were so popular that everybody would be reading them, and everybody would be in the exact same part of the book because you could only get it 1 month at a time. And this stack right here, this is 19 different parts. That means that you had to wait 19 months to get to the very, very end of the story. And by that time, everybody would be super involved with it. People would talk to each other on the streets and in stores of like, did you read the latest, part of David Copperfield? Oh my gosh, what do you think happens to him next? But if you think right now in your life, what were you doing 19 months ago? Well, just imagine that all of this time, you and all of your friends have been reading the same book. A last thing to note, which I think is really, really delightful, this is not fancy. This is made out of paper. It's gotten a little raggedy at the edges and has pictures all around. And inside, there are advertisements. So there are ads for pills, other books, clothes, bonnets. And it shows you that when these were published, when these came out, these weren't something that like a really serious rich person would read. This is something like anybody would be able to buy it and read it. So here is Charles Dickens, David Copperfield in all of its glory. And this is about the most special thing that I could show you.